Hey there, everyone. How are you? This is Neena Perez, and this is Straight Talk, no sugar added. I'm so glad you're here. You know, I go around the planet seeking for the best humans I can find to come on here to grow, challenge, and transform your thinking. So today I want to introduce you to Carrie Leaf, and she is currently a practicing psychotherapist and a mindset coach. For over a decade, Carrie has helped her clients break through the obstacles that seem to be holding them back in life. So she's using holistic, integrated approach, and Carrie will help you identify and clear out negative cognitive beliefs that you've been carrying around for years. And a lot of you know we talk about that a lot here because changing your mindset is the way to go. So she has a book out called Therapize Yourself, and I'm really, really excited she's here with me today. Carrie, thank you for coming on Straight Talk. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited you're here too. I was on your website just reading a little bit more, and you seem to tackle on a lot of beliefs and things that people carry with them. So I was reading your mindset and life coaching, but you also do hypnotherapy. You deal with anxiety and depression and trauma and relationships and so on. So before we get into all that amazing stuff you got going on, let's know a little bit more about Carrie. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. So like you said, my background is in psychotherapy. So undergrad degree in psychology and then a master's in marriage and family therapy. I finished that out in New York, and then I kind of went all over the place, different settings and mental health, residential, community mental health, and I worked on a university, the National Guard, substance abuse, kind of across the board. So I've done a little bit of it all and landed here in private practice and kind of niching down into the mindset and the negative belief systems, because throughout all of that, I've just seen, it's all going to come back to that. It doesn't matter who I'm working with, what age, what's going on. It's going to come back to their belief system and how we can heal and switch that from the inside out.
Yeah, it's true. I believe that as well. I think it starts with the mind for sure. So, what got you into this to begin with? Like, what made you go down this path of, wanting to get into helping people with mindset and psychotherapy and all of that?
Yeah, so there's a couple things, and it starts way back, like middle school and high school age. My dad was a high school guidance counselor and a professor at the community college there. So the field in general was just, I grew up aware of, psychology and human, emotions and all of that, talking about that kind of stuff. But then there was also, going into high school and when relationships became really, really important to me, and I'm kind of exploring who am I and what do I want to do, and I just couldn't see what was more important than relationships in our life, and that includes the relationship with ourselves. I don't know if I realized that at the point, but understanding ourselves through our relationships, I definitely started exploring like just the importance of that, of like knowing who we are and how we conduct ourselves and how we show up in this world. And my parents also put me into therapy at, what was I had a 15, 16 maybe. And I was quite resistant to
I was
that.
gonna say, I was gonna ask, and you
I didn't want
gladly
to go.
went, right? You gladly went.
No, I'm pretty sure the poor therapist, I'm pretty sure I didn't say more than 2 words the first session. Like, I probably made it very painful, but he probably, it was a male therapist, and he probably was like, what is the point of this? This little girl won't talk. But within a few sessions, like, I don't know, I got enough out of it, or I let enough out, or a combination of the both, that I, realized the power of it and how much better I felt, and, exploring myself and who am I and why do I do the things that I do. And ever since then, I've just known this is what I would do.
Wow, that's great. And so you went down the path of also because you said you just psychotherapy, and I know you do hypnotherapy and all that, but you also did relationships as well, right? Is there like a field or a point that you like to do the most? Do you like to deal with certain types of mindsets, or is it like something that you just attack them all, or is it like oh, I love to dig into this?
It's a good question, and it is hard to narrow down, but I would say, because what people present to therapy or coaching for isn't generally what they necessarily need to work on. I mean, maybe
So true.
roundabout, right? So they might be coming in for a surface level issue,
Right.
but at the end
Right.
of the day, we're going to dig into your mindset and your belief system. So, but I would say what I work with a lot of what's presenting initially is anxiety.
Mm,
But underneath of that, what I'm actually working a lot with is trauma. And the reason that, a lot of clients don't present that they're coming to me for trauma, they're not telling me I need to come see you for trauma, is because a lot of times they don't even recognize it as
right.
trauma. There's
Right.
big T's and little T's when we refer to trauma, but usually I can find some sort of experience in their history, and take the word trauma with a grain of salt. But we can go back and we can see where they develop these belief systems. And so ultimately, that's what I'm working on. But,
Mm.
a lot of people are going to come to me for anxiety or relationship issues or career issues.
And when people come to you, is it like a certain amount of time that you give this person, or is it like open-ended? Is it long therapy? How do you work that out?
It's open ended, but I ask that people try to commit to 3 to 6 months of
Yeah.
consistent,
Yeah.
showing up, consistent sessions. It's not that somebody can't get something from, a couple times or once a month, but they're probably not going to get as much as we could,
Yeah.
compared to somebody that would show up weekly for a while, or at least every other week for a few months, and go from there. And then often what we do is then taper off and kind of like then go into check-in mode, maintenance mode, and check in every once in a while. But
Yeah.
I like to ask people, like, hey, give it 3 to 6 months of some consistency, and let's see where we can go with this, because usually we can see quite a bit of change in that amount of time.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's fair, right? I think it's hard to give somebody a one-off session and think that that's gonna be the end all be all, and sometimes that happens with some clients, right? They think they feel good today,
Right.
that was a good session, and then they're like, "I
Right.
don't need to see her again, I'm good," and that's not really true. We gotta kinda work that out, but
Yes.
so when you see people, 3 to 6 months, is there so okay, I wanna go back a little bit. You said some of the things that are presenting themselves a little bit more these days is anxiety, right? Have you seen
Hmm.
a pattern as to why that might be this anxiety is coming forth?
Well, I mean, now we can definitely look at COVID, but I noticed the increase in anxiety, when I was working on university here in town, and the number of college students that are coming in for anxiety just kind of blew my mind,
Right.
compared to when I just, when I had initially started in the field. And I would probably, link that back to social media. This was a generation that grew up with social media.
Yeah.
I did not. I mean, it was getting started maybe when I was in college, but um, I honestly can't imagine going to middle school, high school with the social media that
Yeah.
kids have now, and the instant access to all of these people and all of these things around the world, which on one is it's fascinating and fantastic. On the other end, it gives us so much to compare to, that we don't have the whole picture. And so
Mhm.
we're filling in the gaps, and we're comparing ourselves, and we're feeling bad. Why aren't we in this, top 1% of the greatest whatever, you're looking up. And
So true.
I think social media it's a tough one for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I constantly say this, but it's 'cause I believe it. It's that we are inundated with information, but we're starving for wisdom. And it's because your brain even can't even take all of that on anyway. We can't even
Right.
take all of the information that's coming at us anyway, right? So we generalize,
Right.
we distort, we delete, right? And then we end up with what you just said, filling in the gaps. And
Yeah.
I noticed that you're absolutely right. I've noticed that not just in like um college students or middle school either, but even in adults, right? There was
Hmm.
a time where I was like, okay, I'm getting like this anxiety and like, what is going on here? Comparison and limiting beliefs and I'm not good enough. What is happening? And I realize it's the scrolling, right? You're
Yes.
scrolling through, and you don't realize you're doing that. And sometimes you look up, it's 2, 3 hours and you've been in social media that long, right?
Yes.
Very interesting. It's
It
very
is.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
our brains get
And
just
then try to,
saturated.
yeah, brains get saturated. Try to take it away and see what happens.
Right. Right. I watch it
That's
with
a
my
whole
little
nother thing.
3-year-old and he's almost 4. Both my boys are almost 4, but I'll take their little tablet away. And even then I get meltdowns and I'm like, oh no, no, no,
Oh,
no. This is too young for this is not okay for your little
yeah.
brain,
Yeah. It's
it's too
scary,
much.
right? Yeah. It's
Hmm.
too much. And it's something that, that's good that they have you as mom, because at least you're being aware of that. A lot of times we're not aware of that, right? So even with little ones, you give them the tablet to keep them quiet or to keep them busy.
Hmm.
Back in the day, Carrie, we would have to go outside to keep ourselves quiet and busy, right? It
Yes.
was like, go outside,
Yes.
go. Now I don't even think kids know how to throw a ball properly unless they're in, like, sports or something.
Yeah.
Isn't that
Yeah.
something?
It's a
It's
different world, that's for
it
sure.
is a
And it's
different
just
world.
so much healthier to be outside and fresh air and bored and using imagination.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
yeah.
for sure. For sure. So tell me a little bit about your book, because I thought that, it just sounded, I love the title. I love the title. I couldn't pronounce it at first, so I want to make sure I said it right. It was Therapize Yourself.
Yes.
But I like that, right? Because I mean, and I could be completely wrong. I haven't read it yet, but it sounds like you're going to give people tips or tools to use to start helping themselves through things. Is that right?
Exactly. The title came for a few different reasons. Exactly what you said, to empower people to take charge of their own mental health and to know that they're their own best self healers. I mean,
Mhm.
obviously, I'm in the profession, and at the end of the book, I highly recommend people to get into therapy or coaching or what have you. I know that that's not a possibility for everybody. And so the book is kind of step by step of the process, the holistic approach that I take, and some things that
That's
people can
awesome.
start doing on their own,
Mhm.
and that they can revisit. The book is something that you can dig in and you can gain the skills to do your own little assessment and get yourself grounded and get a good foundation. But life happens and we get thrown off. And so the book is something that you can come back to in 6 months, a year, and check in with yourself again. And you can even compare, there's notes to take along the way. You can compare what you wrote 6 months, or a year ago to where you're at now and what you've learned and what you've gained. And so it really is to help people to take charge and empower them over their own mental health. And the other side of that is like I want to encourage people, like I said, to ask for help and kind of help decrease that stigma. We don't have to have the most severe experiences, diagnosis, trauma to get into therapy. Everybody's
That's
got
right.
stuff, right? We all got our issues. Every single one of us. Every single one of us has at least one negative belief, if not 10 at any given time. So,
Right.
that walking into therapy, we want to look at it more of like how you get your oil changed at your car, in your car. It's maintenance. It's taking care of yourself. It's self-care.
Right. And I think I love that you said that, because I think that it's funny, right? Because I would think that with everything happening now, with COVID and everything with mental health that's being spoken about now, that it still wouldn't be this stigma. And sometimes I feel like it still is. And it's
Mm-hmm.
like, you don't need to have like something traumatic happen to you for you to go and talk about things that are on your heart or on your mind.
Right.
And I'm always preaching that every coach needs a coach, every therapist needs a therapist, every mentor needs a mentor, because I think that we all can use it. We all can use it. I don't care how much education you have and how much whatever, you can always use someone to bounce off of, like your ideas or what you're going through or struggling with. Do you believe that?
Absolutely. And I've been that therapist that was resistant to therapy. I know how hard it is to get
It is.
in, but the coaches, the therapists, the healers, we need it more than anybody, right? Because we're
Right.
taking on all the stuff, from all around. But yes, it's for everybody. And a lot of what we don't realize, like you said, is we think we have to have like a severe diagnosis or have gone through trauma. But the thing is, so many of us are walking around this life, this world, basically like sleepwalking,
Yeah.
in the sense of not being very self-aware, just going through what we were taught, what we were told, what we know. And it takes time and energy and courage to bring our subconscious conscious, to bring it up and to become aware of that stuff that we shove down, that we ignore, that we don't want to face. Some people call it the shadow side, the icky parts of us, but we all have those things that we're not proud of, or we're ashamed of, or that we think are flaws or whatever. We all have that stuff, but
Yeah.
bringing the subconscious conscious is what helps us heal and grow and move through it and get to know ourselves better. And who am I? And when we know ourselves better, we're happier. We show up in this
Mhm.
world authentic and genuine, and we're kinder. And, there's so many benefits to bringing your subconscious to your awareness and exploring that and sifting through it. And it gives you the choice of, who do I want to be and who am I working towards? Because, the healing process and the growth process, you asked how long. Ultimately, that's lifelong. That's a
Right.
lifelong practice,
Yeah.
right? We're
Right.
never done growing and healing. That's constant. But I do want people to, just get that message that it's not about education, status, whatever you want to like compare to. We all, could benefit from digging in.
Yeah, we sure can. And one of the things that, everyone who's listening needs to be aware of is that it's not always fun and
Mm.
it's not always enjoyable to look at yourself and say, ew, I don't like that part. But it is so necessary. At least I think it's so necessary. If you don't want to remain stuck or don't want to remain in a loop, right? Because that's what happens to a lot of us is we keep repeating the patterns that we don't want to repeat. But we keep repeating and repeating. Why am I repeating this? Well, maybe you need somebody to bounce that off of so they can help you through. Because sometimes you just don't know either. You just don't know why you keep self-sabotaging. Why do you keep going through that? And it's not fun to look at either. You're like, I don't like that. I don't
No,
like
it is
that.
so hard. It's so hard. It's uncomfortable. One of the
Mhm.
things that I get a lot, like I said, my master's is in marriage and family therapy. So there's just this, and I think this goes for therapists and coaches across the board, is that, people think that therapists and coaches have got it all together all the
Yeah.
time, 24/7. They get it all. And so with the marriage and family therapy degree, I think a lot of people are assuming my marriage is perfect.
Right.
Marriages are hard work, and
Yes, they are.
I don't know how much my husband will love me putting this out there, but we're in couples therapy. We're working on it. It's
Good.
uncomfortable, it's
Yeah.
hard, but that's if you're going to have your subconscious stuff and your negative and limiting beliefs or childhood familial stuff show up in your life, one of the biggest places that's going to get projected out to and show up in your life is going to be your intimate relationships,
Yeah.
your significant relationships. We're going to put it all on them, and it's going to, like you said,
Yeah.
that feedback loop, the patterns, they're going to go round and round unless we sit down and face them. And couples come in thinking like they're going to change the other person a lot of times.
Yeah.
And couples therapy really is about looking at yourself if you want
So
to get the most
true.
work, right?
So
So
true, Carrie.
it's not fun. That's where the ugliest sides of ourselves show up,
Yeah,
right?
right.
So,
Oh man, it sure does. I went to therapy too. My husband and I, we've been married 21 years and we went to therapy, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago or something. And I
yeah,
was going in there because he's about to learn about himself.
right?
What? I learned so much about myself. I was like, oh, ew, oh, dang it, But I
Yes.
was sure enough with my self-righteous behind going in there because I was all of that.
Right.
Oh my gosh, yeah, therapy, coaching, all of that just brings out, I think, the best in you if you allow it, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
the person on the other side, like you, Carrie, like you are on the other side really wanting authentic breakthrough for this person,
Yeah.
right? So if you guys go into a therapist, a coach, or whatever, know that that person is on your side to help the best you come out, you know?
Yes.
Because I've spoken to people like, oh my God, that therapist is terrible. She just doesn't, and of course they don't want to look at them what they have to work on, right? So it's the therapist's
Mm-hmm.
fault. And not all therapists are amazing, that's true, but still,
Sure.
like, I think when we are on this side of the table, as the client, we're thinking, will that person judge me? And that's not what that person is there for. And
Right.
also, as a coach and you as a psychotherapist, you know that you're on that side saying, what can I do to make the best experience of this person and the best person come out, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And ultimately, each client, each couple, they all have their answer. They know the answers. I
Mhm.
don't know the answers,
Mhm.
right? Like we're not sitting here. We have education and we're trained, and hopefully a lot of us are pretty intuitive, but we don't have the answers. We're not inside your brain living your life. Like
Right.
ultimately,
Right.
each client, each person has their own answers. You know the truth. You know what you got to do, what you got to work on. In fact, you're the only one that has access to that because you're probably bearing it down, suppressing it. But my job is to guide you, safely to being able to address that stuff and bring it up and look at it.
Right. That's fantastic. Now, do you have yourself like tips or tools for yourself that you go through when you're like hitting hard times or when something's coming against you? Do you have a go-to that you
Yeah,
do?
yep. I have a lot of go-tos, and that's what
Yeah.
I recommend is that, a lot
Yeah.
of tools in the toolbox, right? As far as coping skills, self-care, kind of mantras, belief systems, because
Mm.
at the end of the day, it's knowing yourself and what you believe in. But a lot of my go-tos, there's a couple. So the biggest one when I'm struggling is more of the concept of constantly reminding myself to, okay, there's this situation, there's this problem. What's within my control and what is not within my control? And
Mhm.
what's
Mhm.
not within my control, I've got to let it go. And what's within my control, I've got to take action if I don't want to spin around in the hamster wheel and stay stuck and
Right.
magnify the anxiety and the stress, right? So focus on what I can control and take action there. The first verse of the Serenity Prayer says that just so beautifully, and then the other thing that I really like to go to off the bat is checking in with my body. And this one was it took me a while to like kind of grasp this, but people will say, well, you got to sit with your emotions. What in the world does that mean? Like, okay. And in the past, when I would try to sit with my emotions and like let myself feel, like I think I probably sat in it for 30 seconds. Then I'm like, okay, well, that was
Right.
pointless, right?
Right.
So sitting with your emotions, because
Right.
naturally, if it's a negative feeling, and we're not telling people to sit with their happy emotions.
Right.
That's fun, that's easy, right? We're telling them to sit with those negative emotions
Yeah.
because so quickly it's uncomfortable. We don't like them, so we jump out.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
get busy. We occupy ourselves, drugs, alcohol, TV, whatever it may be. We
Yeah.
jump out of those feelings. We numb out. So sitting with them, I thought, I'm like, okay, so just sit down and think about it. No, feel it. Literally feel it in your body.
Right.
Get to know what that emotion brings up for you physically, and tie in that mind body connection, because otherwise,
Yeah.
I was definitely guilty of over analyzing and staying in the brain and the head and spinning around and around. What's this mean? What should I do? Where can I grab control? And so I wasn't feeling, I was trying to manipulate the emotions or the situation. And to feel it, you're going to allow it to come up in your body, identify where it comes up in your body, and learn yourself and sit through that physical feeling,
Mhm.
piece by piece, and realize, if you can sit with it, if you can feel it, if you can allow yourself to process it, it dissipates pretty quickly, and it doesn't kill you. So,
Right.
but we jump out so quickly, we don't even know how to handle those emotions.
Right.
And so we numb, we avoid, right? So sit with it. I know now that, oftentimes we will physically feel what we're feeling emotionally before we identify the feeling. So for me, it's in the right
Mm.
side of my jaw. If the right side of my jaw starts to get tense or tight, that's my indicator light, like on a car, check engine light, like something's
Mhm.
up, like you're starting to get anxious. There's anxiety
Mhm.
brewing. And sometimes I'll sit there and I'm like, what am I even anxious about? What's going on? But the indicator light, the tenseness in my jaw reminder of like check in with yourself because something's going on below surface level, so
Yeah.
sit with it, figure it out, and then usually I can get ahead before the anxiety gets to like really intense, and or just overall stress and overwhelm that shows up in my shoulders. They get really tense and tight. So
Mhm.
knowing your body and sitting with those feelings physically and emotionally. So those two things would be my go-tos there.
Yeah, those are really good too because I actually do those as well. And especially the sitting and feeling your body because I didn't always do that. I didn't do that.
Right.
I waited, the anxiety was already full blown before I even recognized it. Now I know once my eye starts twitching, I'm like, uh-oh,
That's one of
uh-oh.
mine too.
Yeah. I'm like, uh-oh, stress,
Yes.
stress, because I have a high tolerance for stress. So I
Hmm.
don't notice it until like my eye starts twitching. I'm like, okay, wait a minute. I think I've hit my limit. I think my eyes twitching, people. Leave me alone.
Yes, I get the same eye twitch. In fact, there's been days where like, the eye is twitching and I'm in
Yeah,
session and I'm like, can they see my eye twitching? Because it feels really intense sometimes.
it does. Oh my
So,
gosh. That's
but
so funny.
yes, it's good to know that about yourself.
Yeah. That's really good, and I love the other one too, like, control what you can and don't try to control what you can't. You're just gonna be spinning in a wheel. I believe that too, and I actually do practice that a lot because
Yeah.
I'm a director, so I have like about 20 something people under me. And then to do that, I'm like, okay, what can I control? And you have kids. So
Yes.
I have kids too, but they're grown. But I remember there was things I could control and things I couldn't. And I would get so worked up over the things I couldn't control. And it wasn't until you start to decide that you can't control everything that you start to
Mhm.
realize, oh, you know what? I can't even control that. So let's just move on from that,
Right.
because you'll drive yourself nuts. Then all your eyes are
Right.
twitching, you know?
Right. Right. Exactly. They're no good to anybody. Right.
Exactly. Oh my gosh. Well, Carrie, before I let you go, I really enjoyed our conversation. And I would love for my audience and my listeners and stuff to know a little bit more about you and to follow you,
Yeah.
or even do you have like coaching programs and stuff on your site as well and all
I
that?
do. Yes.
Great. Great. So give us all of your like social media handles or whatever it is that my viewers and listeners can reach you at.
Yeah, the two easiest are going to be on my website, carrieleaf.com. So CarrieLeaf.com. And then the Instagram, and that is at Carrie Leaf Coaching. There's a link to my book on my website, and there's a
Great.
link in the, Linktree bio. On Instagram as well. Otherwise, it's on Amazon. And so the website and Instagram and Amazon is going to be the best places.
Oh man, awesome. And I'll make sure to link all of your information below. So this was
Cool.
amazing. I really enjoyed talking to you. Thank you for being here with
Yes.
me.
Thanks for
Yeah,
having
thank
me.
you.
So
Thank
fun.
you. Guys, thank you so much for being here and listening and watching. And make sure that you click and like and subscribe and share, because this is conversations that are important and that people should be hearing. And therapy is a beautiful thing. Coaching is a beautiful thing. And I want all of you to understand that there's nothing to be afraid of or avoid, but to actually embrace it because it will help you get to the next level of whatever your next level is. So I will make sure to put Carrie's information below. Therapize Yourself is on Amazon, so I'll make sure to link that as well. And thank you guys so much for watching. This is Neena Perez. This is Straight Talk, no sugar added. Until next time.
Podcast is brought to you by Wincheck Studios. We are an all-in-one educational platform for podcasters that revolutionizes how hosts leverage content to increase engagement with listeners, downloads, and income. We come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how you can interact directly with our hosts, access exclusive live content with offers you can't get anywhere else from our official partners, join our purpose-driven community by visiting www.winject.com. If you're ready to build a career doing what you love, then we're ready to see you there.